The date was February 2nd, 2024, when this, the Apple Vision Pro, made it into people's hands for the first time. Welcome back to a vision experiment with me, Ty, talking everything Apple Vision Pro, spatial computing, applications, accessories, and more. And this is the 1 year of Apple Vision Pro review, a user's honest opinion. So yeah, it's crazy that it's been a year since Apple Vision Pro launched in America. It's something that, for me, when it did announce in the January that it would be dropping on the 2nd of February 2024, the excitement and the buzz was massive. I was at the time at CES 2024 and I was just, I don't know, I think the only way I can describe it was major excitement in the world of XR and spatial computing. Like the vibe, the buzz from everyone was, has this just overshadowed the whole of CES, which obviously it didn't. But it was at the right time to announce it because we'd heard nothing since the WWDC 2023 announcement that Vision Pro was a thing. And it had maybe just drifted out of a few people's minds, and Apple really wanted to remind everyone in tech season. So just to be aware that obviously I'm based in the UK and Vision Pro didn't launch in the UK until the 12th of July. And that's a really important thing because I couldn't get my hands on Vision Pro unless I traveled to the US to pick one up. And there are a lot of people unsure whether that was even an option, even viable. Should you import a Vision Pro from the US out of the country because of limitations on access to the App Store, limitations on requiring payment methods that are US based? There were so many reasons not to do it, and that kind of put me off. But what it didn't do is stop me watching basically the big fanfare, the amount of media exposure. It was quite simply probably one of the biggest things in XR ever because Apple were coming to the party. They were going to launch their product to the masses. And with that, you had a global spotlight on this type of product for the first time ever. And the world was in awe of this device that was touted as this magical thing. And I just kind of want to give you guys a bit of an overview from my standpoint with my own honest and personal opinions about launch date, everything that kind of flowed from that initial high, the huge buzz, and sort of beyond that into the months beyond the initial kind of hype sort of fading out, fizzling out, and why I decided to purchase a Vision Pro, even knowing that that hype was no longer as high as it was in that February time. As we know, and looking back on in reflection, February was the big release, and everybody, and I mean every single type of YouTube content creator, TikTok creator, you name it creator was out there picking up their Vision Pro. You had lines of customers ready to collect their new prized possession, this magical device, with well-known people such as Tim Cook and Greg Josniak and other Apple executives greeting these customers with huge fanfare. With all this global coverage of Vision Pro, with it being on TV and people using it, Tim Cook giving people on some of the mainstream media channels a private demonstration of Apple Vision Pro just before its launch, it really grew a lot of eyes onto the product. And with that came the flood of content creators ready, baying to make content about Apple Vision Pro. And one real main reason is because Apple Vision Pro as a new product line to Apple doesn't have the product maturity. The reality of Vision Pro was that it was such an early first-gen product that there were so many things that people didn't know about it or weren't educated about these kind of devices that they went out and did kind of wacky, bizarre and unusual things with them that you just would not do. Things such as walking the streets of Manhattan, opening these AR windows all around you on a subway train whilst everyone's staring at you, riding a boosted board, or worse yet, driving heavy machinery such as a Cybertruck whilst wearing one.
Yeah, and I'm in the Cybertruck driving, but also just playing with the Apple Vision Pro. I think it'd be so stupid. Yeah, and I think it'd be awesome.
I think that'll go viral, actually.
These were things that I personally think sort of led to so many content creators desperate to make viral media from it and get views from it, that it kind of detracted from what I think Apple really wanted it to be. They wanted it to be this ultra futuristic, magical product that gave you an experience like nothing they've ever made before. Although things like this have existed before, Apple really wanted to make that stamp on this product line that it was worth the money and that you all needed a spatial computer. Now, because of the way that it was perceived with influencers, it kind of became more of a meme than a futuristic device. So many people talking about people driving Cybertrucks and being pulled over by the police, or people waving their hands around just randomly in public whilst wearing them, walking through malls and doing silly things, that really it showed how uneducated people were about what this device was. Now, was that the content creator's fault, or was it Apple's fault? I personally think it was a bit of both. And realistically, perhaps Apple needed to offer more of an insight to what this product was, so that people who bought it really had a good idea about what they might actually use it for. Products like this aren't like things like an iPhone. They're not like a MacBook Pro or an iPad. They aren't socially visible. You don't see many people wearing what is kind of a head-mounted display in public too often. Now, they are growing, and obviously the amount of headsets that are out there from other companies, from Meta and Pico and others are out in the wild. They're some of the biggest things sold at Christmas, and a lot of people like to buy them for their gaming potential with that immersive element. But Apple Vision Pro was never pitched that way. So if you weren't going to be using this with controllers, because it doesn't have any, what were you going to actually use it for? And I think that Apple's initial curated overview about what Vision Pro would do for you at WWDC, by the time it launched on the 2nd of February in America, had kind of fallen out of people's minds. They weren't quite so sure what they should do with it and decided they would just do whatever they wanted with it, which obviously for a $3,500 investment, you have every right to. But if you're using it to gain viral success, you've got to catch people's eyes, and most of the things generally tended to be things that you just wouldn't use these things for. And so because of the lack of knowledge and education that Apple gave, and I wonder whether in some part it was because if you were to be open and honest with everyone, considering that Vision Pro was offered to everyone, because Apple doesn't make products that are solely for certain sectors or business, enterprise, that it was offered to everyone, to tell everyone that this was not going to replace your iPhone, this wasn't going to replace your MacBook Pro, that you may have probably felt it was just a very expensive peripheral that you really could do without, that could sort of damage the product before it even got going. In truth, I think that looking back, I don't know whether Apple would have done anything differently, but I personally would have thought that there was a responsibility to people who are going to invest a lot of money in this product to at least let them know what they were getting themselves into. I've been working in spatial computing or extended realities for many years. My kind of forte is shooting immersive media in both 360-degree video and stereo 180-degree video. And with that comes a lot of knowledge about what's come before Vision Pro. And something that is really key is understanding the history of VR and AR and mixed reality as what these kind of devices truly are right now, with their color pass-through and the ability to augment things in front of you. It's something that so many people that bought Vision Pro didn't have that knowledge and maybe just trusted Apple on why they needed it. And because of that, they're led to bulk of returns quite early on. I can imagine that everyone kind of had this moment where they had it for a couple of weeks. They knew they had the option to return it within a short space of time and realized that they didn't really have a lot of use for it. Do I think that they have missed out on something? Potentially, but everyone has that right. I think that maybe being too honest from Apple in saying that this product wasn't a mass market product at the start would have been maybe a mistake, but it also would have showed that they actually were quite true in their desires to sell Vision Pro to the masses, in saying that this one was a pro product. And it's super important to understand that. This approach by Apple is actually really unusual. They rarely ever release anything that hasn't had some form of consumer accessible version first in a new product line. Imagine Apple releasing something like an Apple Watch Ultra first before Apple Watch. It would obviously sell, but you would find that maybe far less people wanted it. Maybe because it was too big, maybe because it had features they didn't need. Things such as, diving capabilities or going up mountains and having different features that are obviously for certain people's desires and hobbies. But the reality is that something like Apple Watch Ultra is a great example, because people who wanted a different type of watch to the first types of versions of Apple Watch, the traditional model of Apple Watch, purchased it. They weren't going diving, they weren't going up mountains, they wanted something different. And that's because the groundwork was laid with the initial Apple Watch line, and generations of evolution of that product, refinements and maturity led to a product line that had a huge fan base. And that kind of lended to maybe people upgrading to something that had more features and had a bigger screen and lots of other things. Apple Vision Pro didn't have that luxury. This product was obviously designated towards pro users, but it's obviously accessible to anyone if you have the money to buy it. That's where I think this is strange, but I can kind of see that maybe Apple decided that this product had to be driven by the people that really love this type of product in a spatial computer or extended reality type device. Developers who really want to make spatial applications, they're the ones, the early adopters, that are going to push this product and allow Apple the feedback to create what will be that consumer accessible vision product in the coming years. One of the things that really seemed to pop up a lot when I look at online forums on Reddit and things like that was the sheer volume of people that seemed disappointed with the amount of apps available, particularly native apps. And obviously, they offered a lot of iPad apps and iOS apps available on Vision Pro from day one. The problem is they did allow developers to opt out if they didn't want their iPad apps available on Vision Pro, which then cut off things like Netflix and other major applications that people really wanted to use on Vision Pro. You were left with just a handful of different native apps right at the beginning that obviously now, some months later, has grown and evolved into a bigger catalog. But as a Gen 1 product, if you truly think about how the original iPhone, when that released, had no app store whatsoever, Vision Pro had a fair amount of applications, but what they need now is to drive app developers to want to make more of them. And by the time the consumer version that's accessible from a price point that may have some refinements to it is available to the masses, you'll definitely have a much better library of native applications. So the biggest elephant in the room, I think, for Vision Pro from day one was its price point. at a starting point of $3,500 US, not including tax, by the way, is a huge sum of money for anyone to invest in something that they have no idea what it could do. You can definitely invest money into something like a MacBook Pro, a fairly good one at around that price point, and know what you're going to get out of it. The same with an iPhone or an iPad. You've got confidence in what you're going to use it for. Vision Pro, on the other hand, had very little out there to give you a good idea about what Apple's vision of what a device like this would be like. You can't really go off other headset manufacturers and what they're doing because no one truly knew until they bought it on day one on the 2nd of February what really it was like to live with Apple Vision Pro. So that's enough about the kind of overview as I followed the media highs and the sort of gradual tapering off of that desire for Vision Pro. The early adopters and the ones that had the education about this device continue to keep using it and keep exploring what this product's potential truly has. And I'm kind of here to say that even though I watched all of this happen and transpire in front of my eyes, I still picked one up when I went to New York in June of 2024, 1 month before it released in the UK, purely because I knew that I would use this daily. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope that you enjoy the A Vision Experiment channel. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe. It's really important so that this channel can keep growing and so I can continue to make content for you guys in the future. And with that, I'm going to catch you for another video really soon.